My family blamed me for losing our fortune until my brother sneered. You're the reason we're broke. The banker cleared his throat. Actually, the account holder made a secret withdrawal last month. My brother turned pale. I used to believe that family was everything. That no matter what happened, the people you grew up with, the ones who knew you best, would always stand by your side. That was before my own family turned on me. Before they accused me of something I didn't do. Before I found out that the person responsible, the one who had ruined everything, was the same person who had pointed the finger at me. And the worst part? My mother believed him. It all started the day we lost my father. Dad had always been the backbone of our family, the one who kept everything running. He wasn't a perfect man. He had a temper, was stubborn as HLL, and never backed down from a fight. But he worked his entire life to build something for us. He started out as a mechanic, fixing cars in our tiny garage before expanding into a real business. Eventually, he bought a second shop, then a third, and by the time I was in my 20s, he had a small empire of auto repair shops across the state. He wasn't rich, but he was smart with money. He bought rental properties, invested in land, and always put something away for a rainy day. The only reason we weren't struggling like so many other families was because Dad had spent decades making sure we wouldn't. Then, one night, he had a heart attack in his sleep. Just like that, he was gone. I don't remember much from those first few days after he died. The funeral was a blur. People talking, shaking my hand, offering condolences while I tried to hold it together. My younger brother, Bryce, cried on my mother's shoulder. My Aunt Diane kept patting my back like I was a child. And my mother, Helen, looked hollow, like something inside her had broken. After the funeral, everything changed. Since I was the oldest, my mother expected me to take over the finances. My father had always handled the money, and she never paid much attention to the details. Bryce, sure as HLL, wasn't going to help. He had never worked a real job in his life. He was 31 and still living off my parents, acting like life owed him something just because he was the youngest. So I stepped up. I went through my dad's paperwork, met with his lawyer, and made sure the businesses were still running smoothly. It was a lot, but I took pride in it. I wanted to protect what my father built. But 2 months later, everything fell apart. The money, everything my father had worked for, was gone, and they all thought it was my fault. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. My mother called me over, saying Bryce wanted to have a family discussion. The moment I walked into the house, I knew something was off. Mom was sitting stiffly on the couch, her hands clasped in her lap, her face pale. Aunt Diane was there too, which was unusual. She only showed up when there was gossip or drama to be had. And Bryce stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, with a look that sent a chill down my spine. He was waiting for me. I sat down slowly. What's going on? Bryce let out a dramatic sigh and shook his head. Victor, man, I hate to do this, but we need to talk about the missing money. I frowned. What missing money? Mom inhaled sharply. Victor, please, just tell us the truth. What truth? I asked, feeling my stomach tighten. Bryce turned to my mother with an exaggerated look of sympathy. See, this is what I was afraid of. He's going to act like he doesn't know. Know what? I snapped, my patience running thin. Bryce took a step closer, his voice lowering. Mom got a notice last week. The estate accounts? They're empty. The savings Dad left us? Gone. The rental properties? The accounts for them were drained. He tilted his head. You were the one in charge of everything. So tell me, Victor, where did the money go? The accusation hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked at my mother, expecting her to laugh it off, to tell Bryce he was being ridiculous. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, I said, my voice cracking. Her hands shook as she smoothed down her skirt. I just need to understand, Victor. You think I took it? I asked, my voice rising. You actually believe I would steal from my own family? Bryce scoffed. Who else could have done it? You had access to everything. If you were struggling, you could have told us. I shot up from my seat, my chest heaving. I didn't touch that money. Nobody said anything. The silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. For the first time in my life, I saw doubt in my mother's eyes. It hurt more than anything. I wasn't going to let them pin this on me. If they wanted proof, I'd get it. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting at the bank. Bryce insisted on coming, probably thinking he was about to watch me get caught. Mom came too, her hands shaking the entire drive there. We sat across from the branch manager, Mr. Hollis, as he pulled up the account records. You're inquiring about the estate account transactions? He asked. Yes, I said firmly. I need to see exactly where the money went. Bryce leaned back, arms crossed, smirking. This should be good. Hollis clicked through his computer, then frowned. Well, this is unusual, he muttered. Mom stiffened. What do you mean? Hollis adjusted his glasses. The last withdrawal from the estate account was made last month. It was a large sum, enough to close it out completely. Bryce shot me a pointed look. See? Hollis continued, his voice steady. The transaction was authorized by the account holder. I frowned. I'm the account holder. Hollis shook his head. Not for this transaction. He turned the screen towards us. The authorization came from Bryce Calloway. The room went dead silent. Bryce's face went pale. Mom turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. Bryce. He let out a nervous laugh. That's not possible. Hollis tapped the screen. The signature matches yours. And the funds were transferred to a personal account under your name. I turned to my brother, my hands curling into fists. You stole it. Bryce stammered. I needed it. For what? Mom whispered, her eyes wet. Hollis cleared his throat. A large portion was used to pay off gambling debts. Mom gasped. Bryce hung his head. I felt a cold, seething rage boil inside me. You let them blame me, I said, my voice low. You let Mom think I was a thief while you were the one who stole everything. I didn't have a choice. Bryce shouted. They were going to come after me. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. Mom's hands trembled. You destroyed everything your father built. For the first time, Bryce had nothing to say. And for the first time, I didn't care. Bryce was silent. His mouth opened, then closed, like he was struggling to find an excuse. Something, anything, that would make this all go away. Mom was shaking. Her hands clenched together, her breathing uneven, and I could see it on her face. The betrayal sinking in, the realization that her youngest son, her baby, had done the one thing she never thought possible. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at Bryce. You gambled it away? She whispered. Bryce rubbed the back of his neck. Mom, it wasn't like that. Hollis, ever the professional, cleared his throat. If you'd like to dispute the withdrawal, we can. No, I cut him off. No disputes. He signed for it. He took it. Bryce's head snapped up. Victor, come on, man. I know I messed up, but we're family. We can fix this. Fix this. I let out a bitter laugh. Bryce, do you even understand what you've done? That money was supposed to take care of Mom. It was supposed to keep the businesses running. You didn't just lose cash, you lost security. You lost our father's entire legacy. I didn't mean to. Bryce's voice cracked. I stared at him. This pathetic, stammering version of my brother was unrecognizable. The Bryce I knew was CCKY, always sure of himself, always making excuses. But now, backed into a corner, he looked small. You let me take the fall, I said. Bryce flinched. I was scared. I shook my head. No, you were selfish. Mom suddenly stood, her legs shaking as she grabbed the edge of the desk for support. I need air. Mom. Bryce started, reaching for her. She flinched away. Don't touch me. I had never seen my mother look at anyone the way she looked at him at that moment. Like she didn't even recognize him. I turned back to Hollis, my jaw tight. We're done here. And just like that, I walked out, leaving Bryce to sit there with his shame. Outside the bank, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows on the sidewalk. Mom sat down on a bench, her hands covering her face. I sat beside her, not saying anything at first. What was there to say? After a long silence, she spoke. How could he do this? I didn't have an answer. She let out a shaky breath. I defended him, Victor. I doubted you. I'm so ashamed. I exhaled slowly. You're his mother. She wiped her eyes. And you're my son too. I should have trusted you. I nodded, staring at the pavement. We sat there, watching the world pass us by, both of us trying to process the fact that everything we thought we knew had just shattered around us. And Bryce had no idea what was coming next. The ride home from the bank was quiet. Mom stared out the window, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I knew she was trying to process everything. How Bryce had not only stolen from us, but let me take the blame without a second thought. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I wasn't the type to hold grudges. I believed in fairness, in handling things the right way. But this? Bryce wasn't just some irresponsible screw-up who had made a mistake. He had made a choice. And that choice had consequences. By the time we pulled into the driveway, I already knew what I had to do. Mom didn't say much that night. She went to bed early, and I stayed up in the kitchen, nursing a glass of whiskey and going through the paperwork I had been too furious to look at earlier. The damage was worse than I thought. Not only had Bryce drained the estate accounts, but he had also taken out loans in my father's name. Thousands of dollars in debt, piling up under fraudulent paperwork. And the worst part? Some of the rental properties were already at risk of foreclosure because the mortgage payments had stopped. Bryce hadn't just stolen from us. He had put everything we owned on the line. At exactly 10:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. Bryce, hey man, we should talk. Let's fix this. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Me, tomorrow. Mom's house. Be there at 10. Bryce, thanks man. You won't regret this. I smirked. Oh, but you will. The next morning, I arrived early. Mom sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee untouched in front of her. She looked exhausted. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked quietly. I met her gaze. It's not about what I want. It's about what needs to happen. A knock at the door interrupted us. Bryce. I opened it to find him standing there, wearing his usual charming smirk, like this was just another minor inconvenience. Hey, he said, stepping inside like he owned the place. Glad we can talk like adults. I didn't answer. I just motioned for him to sit. He pulled out a chair and leaned back like he didn't have a care in the world. Look, I know I messed up, okay? But we can figure something out. Maybe I can work for you at one of the shops, help pay it back. I cut him off. You're going to pay back every cent. Bryce let out a nervous chuckle. Vic, be real. I don't have that kind of money. I know, I said, which is why I already handled it. His smirk faltered. What do you mean? I leaned forward. I met with Dad's lawyer this morning. And with the bank. I tossed a folder onto the table. I reported the fraud. Bryce's face drained of color. What? He croaked. I gave them all the evidence. The signed documents, the withdrawals, the fake loan applications. It's all there, Bryce. And because of the amount you stole, they're treating it as a federal crime. His hands shook as he opened the folder, scanning the pages. You wouldn't do this to me. I held his gaze. You did this to yourself. He shoved the papers aside. Jesus, Victor, I'm your brother. No, I said coldly. You stopped being my brother the moment you let Mom believe I was a thief. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I continued. Now here's the deal. You have two options. One, you let this case move forward and you get arrested. That means court hearings, a criminal record, and a very public humiliation when everyone finds out what you did. Bryce swallowed hard. And the other? I slid another piece of paper toward him. You sign over your share of the estate, I said. Every property, every asset Dad left behind. You forfeit all of it. You walk away with nothing. His lips parted in shock. You want me to give up everything? You already took everything, I snapped. This just makes it official. He stared at the paper. And if I don't? I leaned back, crossing my arms. Then I pressed charges. And trust me, with the evidence I have, you won't just be broke. You'll be in prison. Bryce was shaking now, his breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. This isn't fair, he whispered. It was just a mistake. I scoffed. A mistake is misplacing a receipt. A mistake is forgetting a bill. You gambled away our father's life's work, and you let me take the fall for it. That's not a mistake. That's a betrayal. Tears welled in his eyes. Victor, please. For a brief moment, I saw the little brother I used to protect. The kid who used to follow me around, who cried when he scraped his knee, who looked up to me like I was the strongest person in the world. But that kid was gone. Bryce had made his choice. Now, he had to live with it. Sign it, I said, pushing the pen toward him. His hands trembled as he picked it up. He hesitated, looking up at Mom, silently pleading. But she only shook her head. A single tear slipped down his cheek as he signed his name. The moment the ink dried, I took the paper and stood. Now get out. Bryce blinked at me. Wait, that's it. You're just throwing me out. I nodded. You wanted to be free? Now you are. His face twisted with anger. You're kicking me out of my own family. No, Mom said softly. You did that yourself. He looked between us, realization dawning. You're serious. I didn't say another word. I just opened the door. For a second, he looked like he might argue. But then his shoulders slumped, and he walked out without another word. I watched him go, his figure growing smaller until he finally disappeared down the street. Mom let out a shaky breath. Do you think he'll be okay? I sighed. I don't know. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I cared. Bryce disappeared after that. I heard through the grapevine that he tried to borrow money from old friends, but no one wanted to get involved. With nothing left to his name, he had no choice but to leave town. As for me, I fixed what I could. I sold off some of the properties to cover the debts, restructured the businesses, and made sure Mom was taken care of. It wasn't easy, but little by little, I restored what Bryce had destroyed. And the best part? For the first time in a long time, I could finally breathe. No more cleaning up Bryce's messes. No more carrying his weight. He had spent his whole life taking from us. Now, he had nothing left to take. And I had never felt lighter. Months passed, and life slowly started to settle into a new kind of normal. It wasn't the same as before. Too much had changed for that. But there was a peace in the house that hadn't been there in years. Mom took some time to grieve, not just for Dad, but for the son she had lost in a different way. I caught her staring out the window some days, lost in thought, probably wondering where Bryce was, if he was okay, if he regretted what he had done. I never asked. I had made my peace with it. I focused on rebuilding. Selling off a few properties had kept us afloat, and with careful management, I was able to get the businesses back on track. I tightened security on all accounts, made sure every financial decision was backed up with legal protection. Never again would I let someone take advantage of us like that. I moved Mom into a new house, a smaller one, easier to manage. She resisted at first, but when I showed her the backyard garden and the sunroom where she could read in the mornings, she smiled. For the first time since Dad died, I saw something in her eyes that had been missing. Hope. One in the afternoon, as we sat on her porch drinking tea, she spoke up. Do you think he'll ever come back? I knew she was talking about Bryce. I thought about it. Maybe. Would you ever forgive him? I looked at her. Her face was lined with sadness, but there was no anger anymore. Just a mother who had lost a child in a way she never expected. I sighed, staring out at the yard. I don't know, Mom. Some things you don't come back from. She nodded, and we left it at that. Bryce had made his choice. He had to live with it. As for me, I wasn't looking back. I had spent years being the responsible one, the fixer, the one who cleaned up after him. But now, for the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying someone else's burden. I was free, and that was enough.